Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into some really cool stuff today
Mm.
about pushing past fear and chasing those big dreams.
hmm
You know, we found this motivational speaker who just gets it, and they break down what holds us back in a really practical way.
Yeah, we're gonna kind of flip the script on the whole fear is a bad thing. Give you
Exactly.
some tools to actually work with it, Not against it.
I love that.
Use it.
So to help us with all of this, we've got an amazing expert with us
Hey, everybody.
who can connect all the dots for us and explain not just what the speaker's saying, but why it matters for you listening right now.
It's about making these ideas actually work in your life, right?
That's it. So the speaker starts off by kind of stating the obvious fear is just human. It's not like a weakness or something. It's just how we're wired.
Right, it's built in.
Yeah. But here's where things get interesting.
They say fear itself isn't really the problem.
Okay.
It's how we react to it that decides whether it helps us or holds us back.
That's a huge difference, isn't it?
It is.
So it's less about becoming fearless and more about becoming fear aware.
I like that fear aware.
And this speaker, they actually get into the science of it. Like how our brains are still kind of programmed for survival mode. So even today, we react to things that seem threatening with the burst of those stress hormones.
Right, just like we were facing down a saber-toothed tiger or something.
Exactly.
Even though it might just be like giving a presentation at work.
Which can feel that scary sometimes, right?
I can.
I mean, that fight or flight response, it's amazing for keeping us safe in actual danger.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But when it's triggered by everyday stuff, it can really hold us back.
Absolutely.
So one fear the speaker really digs into is the fear of failure. That what if I mess up feeling?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Or what if people judge me?
Everybody's got that.
It's so common.
Yeah, and what's interesting is they don't just say, don't be afraid to fail, which we hear all the time, right?
Yeah, it's kind of cliche at this point.
They go deeper. Like why we even fear failure in the first place.
Okay, I'm interested.
It's how our brains focus on the negative stuff, which can make the consequences of failure seem way bigger than they actually are.
Oh, so it's like our own negativity is working against us, making failure seem scarier than it needs to be.
Exactly. And this leads to a really cool point. The speaker says we need to rewire how we think about failure.
Rewire.
Yeah. Instead of this big scary thing, what if it was valuable feedback?
Okay.
A key part of learning.
So instead of avoiding failure at all costs, we should almost be embracing it.
In a sense, yeah. They use the analogy of a scientist doing an experiment.
I like that.
You don't expect every experiment to work perfectly right.
Right.
Failure is just data that helps you get closer to what you want.
It takes the pressure off and turns failure into something that helps you grow.
Totally. And this connects to another big idea they talk about. Action is the antidote to fear.
The more we do even when we're afraid, the more we learn and adapt and build that resilience.
Right, and they challenge us to think about this practically, like break down our fears into smaller steps.
So it's not about waiting until we're totally fearless.
Mm-hmm.
It's about doing it, even though we're afraid.
Yeah, just take one little step.
Then another and another.
Exactly.
Now, I'm curious. The speaker also talks about the fear of success, which I know I've struggled with.
It's more common than you think.
It seems so backwards,
Yeah.
but it's real, isn't it?
It is. It often comes down to things like self-sabotage or imposter syndrome. We worry that success will change us or we won't be able to handle it or the expectations.
It's like we're afraid of becoming someone we don't recognize.
Yeah. And this is where what they say about self-worth and limiting beliefs becomes really important.
Okay, so let's get into that. What does the speaker say about those limiting beliefs?
Well, they really emphasize that our beliefs shape our reality.
Okay.
If we're holding on to these negative thoughts about ourselves, like I'm not good enough or I don't deserve to succeed, those beliefs will show up in our lives.
Like a self-fulfilling prophecy. We sabotage ourselves because deep down we don't think we deserve good things.
That's it. But the good news is just like we can reframe our fear of failure, we can learn to spot and challenge those limiting beliefs too.
How do we do that?
They call it reprogramming our minds, which sounds intense.
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's really just about noticing those negative thought patterns and replacing them with ones that empower us.
So what are some examples of these empowering thoughts?
Well, instead of thinking, I'm going to fail, you might say, I'm going to learn from this experience.
Okay.
Or instead of, I'm not qualified for this, you could think, I have unique skills to offer.
It's shifting the focus from our limits to what we're good at.
Exactly. And they talk about repetition. The more we say these positive things to ourselves, the more we start to believe them.
So we're literally training our brains to be more confident.
That's the idea.
That's amazing.
And it's important to remember, overcoming fear and achieving our dreams isn't a straight line. There's going to be ups and downs, moments of doubt.
Right, life happens.
But the key is to develop that resilience.
The speaker talks a lot about resilience. They do.
But they don't just mean bouncing back from setbacks. It's deeper than that, right?
It is. They define it as the ability to not only handle challenges,
Okay.
but to use them as chances to grow.
I see.
Obstacles aren't roadblocks, they're stepping stones.
That is a powerful way to look at things.
It is.
So we don't let setbacks derail us. We use them to learn and adapt and become even stronger.
Exactly.
I like that a lot.
And the speaker talks about self-care for building resilience.
Oh, that's so important.
Things like sleep, nutrition, exercise, managing stress.
It's taking care of ourselves so we have the energy to face those challenges.
Absolutely. And they even suggest mindfulness practices like meditation or deep breathing.
Those can really help calm everything down.
They do. Reduce those stress hormones, help you focus.
Make better decisions.
It's a whole approach to overcoming fear and achieving our
This is
dreams.
so insightful.
It is.
I'm curious, thinking about what the speaker says about fear being a signal, have you ever felt a fear that led you towards something good? That's a great question. I think back to when I was starting out in academia, I was terrified of public speaking.
Really?
Oh yeah, terrified. But I knew to succeed in my field, I had to get over it.
So what did you do?
I started small, presenting at meetings, then conferences,
Okay.
and eventually I was giving speeches to huge audiences.
That's incredible. So facing that fear opened up all these possibilities for you.
It did. And the funny thing is the fear never really went away completely.
But you learned to work with it.
I did. I learned to manage it, to see it as excitement even,
I see.
and use that nervous energy to make my presentations better.
That's such a good example of turning fear into something that works for you.
It is.
It shows how important it is to take action even when we're scared.
Action is key. It's
Yeah.
how we get from where we are to where we want to be.
Okay, so we've talked about the mental and emotional side of things,
Yeah.
but the speaker also gives some really practical strategies, right?
Oh, yeah. One of the best is visualization.
I've heard of that. It's like creating a picture in your mind of yourself achieving your goal, right?
That's it. But they take it further. You want to use all your senses. Sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. The more real it feels in your mind, the more your brain believes it's actually happening.
It's like making a mental movie of your success.
Exactly. And they suggest practicing this regularly, every day if you can.
Like a mental rehearsal.
Yeah. And they also talk about surrounding yourself with supportive people,
People who believe in you.
people who encourage you, inspire you to be your best.
We all need a cheering section.
We do. And it's also important to distance ourselves from people who drain us or hold us back with negativity.
Yeah, that can be hard, especially if it's people close to us.
It can be tough, but you need to create a space where you can thrive.
This is all so helpful. I'm already feeling more empowered just thinking about these strategies.
That's great.
I'm curious what stands out to you most from what we've discussed.
You know what really struck me? That idea of reprogramming our minds. It's so empowering to know that we're not stuck with those negative thoughts. We can choose to think differently, and that can change our whole experience.
It's like shining a light on those shadowy parts of ourselves and saying, I see you, and you don't control me.
Exactly.
Once we bring those beliefs out into the open, we can question them.
Right. Are they even true? Or are they just stories we've been telling ourselves for years?
And a lot of times, those stories are based on old experiences or things people told us growing up. They might have been true once, but maybe not anymore.
Yeah, that's where the reprogramming comes in. Choosing new beliefs that support what we want in life.
Okay, so let's say we figured out our limiting beliefs and we're starting to reprogram our minds. What are some things we can do to actually overcome those fears and move forward?
Well, they suggest breaking down big goals into smaller steps.
We talked about that before, but it's worth repeating. It's so much easier to do something when it doesn't feel overwhelming.
And each step you take gives you momentum and confidence to keep going.
I think it's important to remember, even those small steps can be scary. Each one is like facing your fears in a new way.
They are, but the speaker reminds us that courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about acting, even though you are feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
I love how they emphasize celebrating those little wins along the way. It's so easy to get caught up in the end goal that we forget to notice our progress.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like running a marathon and only focusing on the finish line. You miss all the scenery along the way.
I love that analogy. It
Huh.
shows how important it is to be present in each moment.
Exactly. And celebrating those moments, no matter how small, it keeps you positive and moving forward.
Okay, so we've got breaking down goals, taking action, celebrating wins. What else did this speaker have to offer?
They talked a lot about creating a supportive environment, surrounding yourself with people who believe in you and encourage you.
We touched on this before, but what are some practical ways we can actually do that?
It starts with paying attention to who you spend your time with. Are they lifting you up or dragging you down? Do they inspire you or drain your energy?
It's like taking stock of your social circle and choosing who you let in.
Right. And it's not always about cutting people out, but maybe setting boundaries or limiting your time with people who are constantly negative.
And on the other hand, actively looking for people who are positive and supportive and share your values.
And those people don't have to be in your everyday life. They could be mentors, role models, even authors or speakers whose work inspires you.
That's a great point.
It is.
We can find support in so many places.
And the speaker also talked about self-care for building resilience and managing fear.
Things like sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress management.
That all plays a part.
It's about taking care of ourselves so we have what we need to face challenges.
And it's not selfish to put yourself first. It's essential.
Sometimes we forget that. We get so busy we neglect our own needs.
I know, but you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill yourself up first.
This has been so insightful. We've covered so much from the science of fear to practical ways to overcome it.
Yeah, it's been great.
If there's one thing I hope you're taking away from this, it's that fear doesn't have to run your life.
You have a choice in how you respond to it.
Exactly. We can let it paralyze us, or we can use it as fuel to move forward.
And like the speaker said, sometimes fear is just a compass pointing us toward where we're supposed to be.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with this question. What fear are you going to embrace today? What step are you going to take, even if it feels a little scary? Remember, the things that scare us most are often the things that are most worth going after.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with more soon. And they talk about the importance of repetition. The more we say these positive things to ourselves, the more we start to believe them, and the more our brains begin to rewire themselves accordingly.
So we can actually train our brains to be more confident and resilient.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that overcoming fear and achieving our dreams is not a linear process. There will be setbacks, there will be moments of doubt, but the key is to develop resilience.
Right, the speaker talks a lot about resilience, but they don't just define it as bouncing back from setbacks. They go deeper, don't they?
They do. They define resilience as the ability to not only withstand challenges, but to actually use those challenges as opportunities for growth. It's about seeing obstacles not as roadblocks, but as stepping stones on the path to success.
And that's such a powerful perspective shift.
Mhm.
Instead of letting setbacks derail us, we can use them to learn, adapt, and become even stronger.
Exactly. And the speaker highlights the importance of self-care in building resilience. This means prioritizing things like sleep, nutrition, exercise, and stress management.
It's about taking care of our physical and mental well-being so we have the energy and stamina to face those challenges head on.
Absolutely. And the speaker even suggests incorporating mindfulness practices like meditation or deep breathing into our routines. These practices can help calm our nervous system, reduce stress hormones, and improve our ability to focus and make clear decisions.
So it's not just about pushing ourselves to achieve our goals. It's also about creating a foundation of well-being that supports our overall success.
Exactly. It's a holistic approach to overcoming fear and achieving our dreams.
This is all so insightful. And I'm curious, thinking about what the speaker says about fear being a signal, have you ever experienced a fear that actually led you towards something positive?
You know, that's a great question. I think back to my early days in academia, I was terrified of public speaking. I mean, truly terrified. But I knew that to succeed in my field, I had to overcome that fear. So I started small presenting at departmental meetings, then conferences, and eventually I was giving keynote speeches to huge audiences.
Wow, that's incredible. So by facing that fear head on, you actually opened up a whole new world of possibilities.
I did, and what's interesting is that the fear never fully went away. But I learned to manage it, to reframe it as excitement, and to use that nervous energy to fuel my presentations.
That's such a powerful example of how we can transform fear into something that works for us, not against us. And I think it highlights the importance of taking action even when we're afraid.
Absolutely. Action is the key. It's the bridge between where we are and where we want to be.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the mental and emotional aspects of overcoming fear. But the speaker also gets into some very practical strategies, right?
They do. One of the most powerful strategies they suggest is visualization.
Oh, I've heard about that. It's about creating a mental image of yourself, achieving your goal, right?
Exactly. But the speaker takes it a step further. They emphasize the importance of engaging all of your senses: sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. The more vivid and detailed your visualization, the more your brain starts to believe it's actually happening.
It's like creating a mental movie of your success.
Precisely. And the speaker suggests practicing visualization regularly, ideally every day, to reinforce those positive neural pathways.
So it's like a mental rehearsal for success.
Exactly. And the speaker also emphasizes the importance of surrounding ourselves with supportive people, people who believe in us, who encourage us, and who inspire us to reach our full potential.
That makes sense. We all need a cheering section, right?
We do. And on the flip side, it's important to distance ourselves from people who drain our energy or who try to hold us back with their negativity.
Sometimes that can be the hardest part, especially if those people are close to us.
It can be challenging, but it's crucial to create a supportive environment where we can thrive.
Okay, so we've talked about visualization, supportive relationships, and we already mentioned breaking down big goals into smaller steps. What other practical tips does the speaker offer?
Well, they also talk about the importance of celebrating our wins no matter how small they seem.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
It's so easy to get caught up in the what's next mentality that we forget to acknowledge our progress and give ourselves credit for the effort we're putting in.
exactly. Celebrating those milestones, even if it's just treating yourself to your favorite coffee or taking a relaxing bath, can make a huge difference in maintaining a positive outlook and building momentum.
It's about recognizing that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Precisely. And it ties back to that idea of rewiring our brains for success. By focusing on the positive, on what we're accomplishing, we're reinforcing those neural pathways that lead to greater confidence and resilience.
This is all so incredibly helpful. I'm already starting to feel more empowered just thinking about these strategies.
That's great to hear. And remember, overcoming fear and achieving our dreams is an ongoing process. There will be ups and downs, but by incorporating these strategies into our lives, we can navigate those challenges with greater ease and grace.
And I think the speaker's final point is a beautiful reminder of that. They talk about fear not as something to be conquered, but as a compass pointing us toward our truest path.
That's a powerful image. It suggests that the things that scare us the most might actually be the things we're meant to pursue.
It's a fear's a guide, a source of wisdom, if we know how to listen to it.
Exactly. And by embracing those fears, by stepping outside of our comfort zones, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities.
This is giving me so much to think about. I'm curious what stands out to you the most from what we've discussed so far.
For me, it's that idea of reprogramming our minds. It's so powerful to know that we're not stuck with those negative thoughts. We can choose to think differently, and that can change everything.
It really can. It's like shining a light on those shadowy parts of ourselves and saying, hey, I see you and you don't control me.
That's a good way to put it.
Once we bring those beliefs out into the open, we can start to question them.
Exactly. Are they even true, or are they just stories we've been telling ourselves for years?
A lot of times those stories come from old experiences or things people told us when we were younger. They might have been true once, but maybe not anymore.
And that's where the reprogramming comes in, choosing new beliefs that support what we want in life.
So let's say we've figured out our limiting beliefs and we're working on reprogramming our minds. What are some practical things we can do to actually overcome those fears and start moving forward?
Well, the speaker suggests breaking down big goals into smaller steps.
We've talked about that before, but it's worth repeating. It's so much easier to do something when it doesn't feel overwhelming.
It is, and each step you take gives you momentum and confidence to keep going.
And I think it's important to remember that even those small steps can be scary. Each one is like facing your fears in a new way.
That's true. But the speaker reminds us that courage isn't about not being afraid, it's about acting, even though you are feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
And I love how the speaker emphasizes celebrating those small wins along the way. It's easy to get so focused on the end goal that we forget to acknowledge our progress.
Yeah, it's like running a marathon and only focusing on the finish line. You miss all the scenery along the way.
I love that analogy. It shows how important it is to be present in each moment.
And celebrating those moments, no matter how small, keeps you positive and moving forward.
So we've got breaking down goals, taking actions, celebrating wins. What else did the speaker have to offer?
They talked a lot about creating a supportive environment, surrounding yourself with people who believe in you and encourage you.
We've touched on this before, but what are some practical ways we can actually do that?
It starts with paying attention to who you spend your time with.
Oh,
Are
yeah.
they lifting you up or dragging you down? Do they inspire you or drain your energy?
It's like taking stock of your social circle and choosing who you let into your inner circle.
Exactly. And it's not always about cutting people out, but maybe setting some boundaries or limiting your time with people who are consistently negative.
And on the other hand, actively looking for people who are positive and supportive and share your values.
And those people don't have to be in your everyday life. They could be mentors, role models, even authors or speakers whose work inspires you.
That's such a good point. We can find support in so many places.
Absolutely. And the speaker also talked about self-care for building resilience and managing fear.
Things like sleep, nutrition, exercise, stress
Yeah,
management.
that all matters.
It's about taking care of ourselves
Yeah.
so we have what we need to face those challenges.
Exactly. And it's not selfish to prioritize yourself. It's essential.
I think we forget that sometimes. We get so busy we forget to take care of our own needs.
But you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill yourself up first.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. We've covered so much from the science behind fear to practical strategies for overcoming it. And I hope you're walking away with a sense of empowerment knowing that fear doesn't have to control your life.
You always have a choice in how you respond.
You can let it paralyze you, or you can use it as fuel to propel you forward.
And like the speaker said, sometimes fear is just a compass pointing us in the right direction.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this question. What fear are you going to embrace today? What step are you going to take, even if it feels a little scary? Remember, the things that scare us the most are often the things that are most worth going after. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on our next deep dive.
See you then.